If your baby is suddenly super clingy or cries when you leave the room, then your baby could have developed what is called separation anxiety.
Yes, so in this video we are first going to discuss the signs that your baby has indeed developed separation anxiety and at what age you can normally expect it to become a problem.
Yeah.
And then afterwards we are gonna share with you the 13 tips to help you deal with your baby's separation anxiety.
Yes, and then at the end of this video, we're also going to share with you a few tips that you can try if your baby suffers from separation anxiety at night.
Right.
This is Nathalie, a pregnancy and birth consultant and TCM therapist.
And that's Matthias, a researcher in Science Geek.
And on this channel, we help mummies and their babies naturally and science-based. So let's talk about separation anxiety. It's not always that obvious that your baby or toddler does suffer from separation anxiety because the way young children express their resentment varies widely between children. However, some typical signs of separation anxiety are, for example, when your baby suddenly starts to cry when you leave the room.
Yes, your baby may also suddenly become super clingy and tense up or cry when unfamiliar people are around.
Yeah.
They may develop a resistance to being looked after by other people, even when they are familiar, like grandparents, for instance. They may also develop a strong preference for one caregiver over another, etc.
Yes, by the way, a baby may develop separation anxiety as early as at the age of 4 to 6 months. However, it is more common between the age of 9 months and 3 years. That said, of course, a baby can also become upset, for example, when you're not holding them at a much younger age. However, technically speaking, that's not separation anxiety because at that age, your baby has not yet developed certain abilities, such as the ability to understand when you left the room, right?
Exactly. However, if your child does develop separation anxiety, there are several ways to help your child.
Separation anxiety can often be the result of parental behavior, which starts way before the baby can actually develop separation anxiety. For example, very often we see new moms run to their babies, snatching them from other people's arms as soon as they hear the baby cry, right? And they are proud that their baby only seems to settle in their own arms, right?
Yes, but as a mom, it's only understandable, right?
Of course, of course, of course.
But the problem is that when you keep doing that, your baby cannot learn to settle in any environment other than in your own arms.
Yeah.
Your baby will always need you around. And as a result, it will be much more difficult for your baby to get separated from you.
Yes, and so it's very important that you give your baby the chance to feel safe in environments which do not include you. And this also means giving other people the opportunity to soothe your baby, particularly your partner.
Before going all in, it's always a good idea to practice separations in small steps. So for example, instead of just dropping your baby at your parents' house, start with small steps. For example, leave your baby in a safe place and then go into another room. And then return after a short period of time.
Yes, this will teach your baby a valuable lesson. And that lesson is that you will always come back to your baby after the separation.
Yes.
And by the way, ideally, you also include a third person who your baby knows less well and who entertains your baby while you leave the room.
Right.
Because this can help your baby understand that at times it's okay that other people take care of them apart from you. Once you have practiced brief separations, you can then build it up gradually.
Right.
For example, you could just leave your baby at their grandparents for a short period of time and then try to gradually increase that time.
Right. Of course, you can also ask other people you trust to take care of your baby, because this will give your baby the chance to experience your absence and to develop an understanding that you will always come back after the separation.
Okay, this is something that you should only do as long as you practice separations, because later on you should actually keep the goodbye short, right? But let's just say you have a new nanny, then it could help to stay with your baby for some time during the first couple of times, because this will give your baby the chance to get used to being away from you and with your new nanny instead of going from 0 to 100%, right?
When you practice separations, you can make that separation easier for your baby when you leave something familiar with them which has your smell on it.
Yeah.
Because as we have explained in our video about baby bonding strategies, your scent is a very powerful thing which your baby associates with you. Not just during the first couple of months of your baby's life, but also thereafter. One thing which has worked so well for us is developing a routine leading up to the separation.
Right.
So for example, when we bring our son to the nursery, we always bring him there in a buggy.
Yeah.
We never take the car.
Yeah.
And so during those 15 minutes when we walk there, he gets his fruits to eat, which he loves.
Yeah.
And we sing songs together until we arrive at the nursery.
Yes. By now, we even got people waiting for us and waving at us along the way. Some even sing along, right? Anyways, the whole purpose here is to mentally prepare a child for that moment of separation. And that's going to be much easier with a routine because then the separation itself becomes an obviousness which hurts less. We know that saying goodbye to your child is at least as challenging for you as it is for your baby, if not more, right? As a result, mummies are often devastated to leave their kid with somebody else, particularly if their baby is crying and really clingy.
Right.
However, if you do feel like you are about to cry like a little girl, it's important that you pull yourself together because if your baby picks up your tension, trust us, it will make the situation much more difficult for both of you.
Yes, and of course, not only moms should pull themselves together, right? It also applies to dads.
Yeah, I know.
Many parents believe that the longer the moment of saying goodbye, the easier it will be for your child. However, it is the exact opposite. If you linger, you extend that moment of separation and thus the separation anxiety.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's best to keep the goodbye short and sweet, for example, with the help of a goodbye ritual.
Yes, what we do when we leave our son at the nursery is, well, first of all, he's the one who rings the bell, right? And then we just share a few cuddles and kisses and that's it.
Yeah.
Short and sweet. And it's almost never a problem.
Yes, except when daddy cannot stop the cuddling.
All right, I understood. It's important that you explain to your child what will happen during the separation and even more importantly, when you will return.
Exactly. So, for example, when you drop off your child at their grandparents, for instance, tell them, look, grandma and grandpa are going to play games with you in the afternoon. And then mommy or daddy is coming to pick you up in the evening. Then we go home, we have yummy dinner and lots of cuddles.
Yes, of course, if your baby is only just a couple of months old, your baby will not yet understand what is going to happen, right? However, we recommend doing it anyways because talking to your baby in general is very important for your baby's development.
It's important that you discuss your return in a language that your child understands.
Yeah.
For example, instead of saying, I will be back on Friday, say something like, I will be home after 2 sleeps. Or, mommy is gonna be back right after your nap. In other words, relate to time by using words they understand.
When you make a promise to be back after your baby's nap, make sure you really do return after the nap. This will help your baby develop the trust that their caregiver will always return as promised, and that trust can decrease the separation anxiety.
Many people will tell you that the best way of handling the moment of separation is by sneaking away when your child is not paying attention.
Yes, this is controversial. However, we believe that it's not a good way of separating from a child. And that's because if you do, your child may develop a fear that you could just disappear anytime without a warning, right? Therefore, in our opinion, the best way is to properly say goodbye to your child before leaving.
No matter how much both you and your child suffer due to your child's separation anxiety, please always remember, it's just a phase.
Yeah.
And as every phase, it will pass eventually.
Yes, that said, in very, very rare cases, a child may also develop a separation anxiety disorder, mostly from the age of 3 onwards, right? However, it's not only very rare, the behavior in such cases would be much more extreme. However, if you do have any doubts, please talk with your pediatrician. Sometimes children, and in particular babies, require some reassurance before they can fall asleep. And so here are a couple of things which have worked for our son when he needed some reassurance before falling asleep. So first of all, always take care of the basics. In other words, make sure that your baby is well fed, has been properly burped, and wears a fresh diaper.
Next, make sure that you stay calm yourself. Babies can pick up your tension very easily, and this will make things more difficult.
Yes, if possible, put your baby to bed when baby is drowsy but has not yet fallen asleep, because when you leave the room after your baby has fallen asleep, it can cause distress when your baby wakes up again.
Yes. And finally, always prepare your baby for bedtime so that it does not come too sudden. In other words, introduce a bedtime routine so that your baby understands that they are now on the road to bedtime.
Yes, and if you want to know what a bedtime routine for a baby could look like, check out the video that pops up now.
Right.
If it does not pop up, you can also find the link in the description below this video.
Right. We really hope that you have found this video helpful. If you did, we would be super grateful if you could leave us a like or even a comment in the comment section below.
Yes, and for more useful tips and tools on pregnancy and baby related topics, make sure to subscribe to our channel and to the bell.